Right, hello guys, and welcome to today's video. And today's video is going to finally be a best class setup for the new AN94 here in Modern Warfare. And I'm not going to keep you guys too long. Here it is on your screen now. Here is the exact setup that I use to make the best class setup for the AN94. So here it is, the muzzle being the compensator, the barrel being the AN94 factory X438mm, the Cronen LP945 mini reflex optic, the stock being the folded stock, and finally the underbarrel being the Commando foregrip. And that is all you need to make the best AN94 setup for multiplayer, okay? I want to say that right now before anyone asks. This is specifically for multiplayer. I will probably do a Warzone setup in due time, but currently I've only had enough time to actually mess around with this gun in multiplayer, as that's where I was leveling up, and finally found a setup that works very well for this gun. And in today's video you're going to be seeing a 71 and 10 gameplay in Ground War with this gun specifically and this setup. And in that gameplay I will also be telling you why I use these attachments and what makes these attachments so good and so dominant on this AN94. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and let's get right into today's gameplay. Right, hello guys, and welcome to today's video. And as you can see, we are at the point where we're going to showcase the gameplay of the class setup, the best class setup for the AN94, as we discussed in the intro, sharing my class setup. And in this point of the video I'm going to be showing you the gameplay, which first of all is a 71 and 10 gameplay with the AN94 best class setup specifically for multiplayer, okay? Going to make that perfectly clear now. This is not a class setup for Warzone. I would not recommend using this for Warzone. You can tell by the setup that it is not for Warzone whatsoever, and that's why you see in the multiplayer gameplay, because again, it's a multiplayer class setup, it's a multiplayer best class setup. But before we even get started to talk about the attachments and why I use the attachments that I do use on my AN94, I just want to start with an apology about this week when it comes to like my uploads and stuff. It hasn't been very consistent this week. I usually upload every 2 to 3 days, and currently I think we're on the 5th day. I think this video is going to go up on like the 6th day, and the reason for that strictly is because of work, okay? I've had issues with work, I've had to be called in for things, and it's kind of eaten into my editing and, you know, gameplay time, and it kind of ruins my ability to bring out videos as quick as I possibly can. But we got past that. I found some time, I found an appropriate moment for me to be able to get a gameplay, use this class setup, level this gun up enough to get the class setup, try out the AN94 and find the best attachments for it. And that's why you're seeing today's video. So let's get to it, let's not keep you around too much. You guys saw the class setup in the intro, and you're probably thinking, okay, why are you using all these attachments? What's so good about this, that, and the other? Like, you're seeing things like the folded stock, which is basically no stock, and I told you guys before, the no stock is a pretty useless attachment now. But on some guns, it can work quite well in some ways, and I'm going to explain that today. But first, we'll start with the other attachments. So, for instance, we're going to start with the muzzle. Now, this has always been I'd say like a two-choice thing in the game, which is there's only been 2 things that you really pick from, and this is no different today, okay? Today, the muzzle for the gun is the compensator, and the reason for that is the AN94 has a little bit precarious recoil, okay? It's a bit all over the place. So instead of going with the monolithic suppressor, I've decided to go with the compensator. It's just something I like. I feel like it helps the recoil. I feel like it makes it nice and just perfect to like just beam people at the range I need to, you know, without any like weird random shots going here, there, and everywhere. So compensator, as always, reduces recoil, or it says recoil control, basically reduces the vertical recoil, makes this gun a lot easier to use. Aim down sight speed and aiming stability are the cons, but don't worry, as you know guys, we always try to fix these things, and we will do that with some other attachments later on in the video. So, next up, we move on to the barrel. This gun needs a little bit more damage, okay? The base damage is pretty good, but we need some more damage, and one of the things we need to do here is put on the AN94 factory X438mm, not the 330, the 438, because the 438 gives us the damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control, and all these things together are just going to make this gun so much better. You know, we're going to have better recoil, which already is a big bonus, and on top of that we get the more damage, we get bullet velocity, which makes it a lot easier to aim at distance. And for instance, as you're seeing here, I'm playing Ground War. Ground War has a lot of long distance gunfights, so you don't want to really be like trying to, how do I put it? Say like an enemy's running like quite far a distance and is running, you know, their full max running speed. You don't want to have to like be compensating for how far away they are. You want to be shooting directly at them, especially in multiplayer. You know, in Warzone it's a little bit different, but obviously today's video is not about Warzone. But this would be an attachment I would use for Warzone as well, but specifically for multiplayer I'd use this as well, just for all those 3 big benefits. Yes, aim down sight speed and movement speed are the cons, but like I've said before, we've got an attachment coming up that's going to help us out tremendously. And then next up, now this is something that is, I'm not even going to say it's like something, a choice really. You need a sight on this, okay? But the one thing is, you got to be like quite precise with the sight that you use on this, because there are a few sights that I found to be a bit like wonky with this gun. I couldn't get any success with them, which is quite weird. So the iron sights for the AN94 are atrocious. For whatever reason, they have not went with the AN94 from like Black Ops 2 or whatnot. You know, the clean iron sights that were so good to use. They went with like a different iron sight, and it's very bulky. There's a lot of things going on. You can't really see the enemy, and if you try to turn, you can even test that right now. If you guys are watching this video and you have the AN94 in your hand, test it right now. Move your gun, sway it to the left or right. You can see like parts of the actual sight just start blocking your view. You cannot see the enemy in your sight. So definitely do not use the iron sights. I would not recommend it. Even if you think you're doing well with it, honestly, it is not worth it, okay? Because the iron sights are just not good whatsoever. So I went with some sights, but the sight I went with specifically is the Cronen LP945 Mini Reflex. That's how I find my best success with this. It just seems to work so well. I do feel like sights just change the way recoil is. Not necessarily that the actual recoil changes, but the view of the recoil, like the view you get when you're seeing the gun, your gun recoil, like it's a bit different. For instance, I was using the GI Mini Reflex for ages just because it was one of the first ones you unlock, and it didn't suit me. It was not working well. Like the gun was bouncing around. I was still getting kills, but I could tell I was missing shots because of this sight. So I changed it again. I went to the Solazero Optics Mini Reflex. Again, I felt that was a little bit better, but I was still bouncing around. Still didn't feel great. I even tried the VLK 3.0 Optic, but that thing was just too slow. For multiplayer specifically, it's just too slow. It might be good for Warzone, but for multiplayer specifically, just way too slow. Not good at all. So then I tried the Viper Reflex sight. Now it was a little bit better. Again, this is actually a decent sight, so I would recommend this if you don't like my sight. The Viper Reflex sight is pretty good, but it's a little bit slower than the Cronen LP945 Mini Reflex, which is the one I got up to. I leveled this all the way up to this, which has been one of my favourite sights all game, probably my most favourite sight. But I did think this would actually work better with the GI Mini Reflex. I like to think of it more as the Cronen being good for like short, medium and long, but I feel like the GI Mini Reflex was always the one for the short and medium range, which is where I thought this gun would excel the most. But I wouldn't say this is the best at anything, in my personal opinion. But yeah, Cronen LP945 Mini Reflex. You can change this sight to whatever you want if you prefer it, but I definitely make sure you're running a sight, and personally I believe this is the best sight for the AN94. Next up, the stock. We went with the folded stock. This is basically no stock, just renamed to another funny little name. So it's called the folded stock, which is movement speed and aim down sight speed. This will fix all the negatives that you have seen, and there is another attachment that does have a movement speed penalty, but again, this attachment here fixes the movement speed and aim down sight speed. Cons are the aiming stability and recoil control. And obviously I discussed in a video quite a while ago that no stock got nerfed into pretty much into oblivion, but you can counter that on some guns with Commando foregrip and the next attachment, which I'll show you in the next second. But basically, oh, the Commando, I've already said it, never mind, I meant to say the compensator. But anyway, the next attachment with the Commando foregrip, and you guys know that anyway from the intro. But the folded stock is the no stock, and yes, they nerfed it to oblivion. It does make the recoil a lot more than what it used to. You know, there used to be next to no penalty. I know that there was a little bit of more recoil, but it wasn't a lot. And then they nerfed it to oblivion. I don't know why they did that. I don't think anyone complained about that, but they did what they did. So it made the attachment a little bit worse. This could have been a way better gun if they didn't do that, but I find it very useful. I find it to help with just, again, this gun's not very fast, so you need something to be able to make it aim down sight fast. You need a bit more movement speed just to be able to strafe, because this gun doesn't feel like you can strafe that well. But yeah, the folded stock will help you do that. And then we finally move on to the last attachment, which is the underbarrel, and that is the Commando foregrip. Like I said a minute ago, recoil stabilization, aiming stability, the cons being the movement speed, but don't worry, the folded stock's already improved that. And yeah, the Commando foregrip, obviously, as you guys may know, or if you are new to the channel, you may not know, basically this will reduce your horizontal recoil, which is the side-to-side recoil, and this is pretty much the recoil is almost uncontrollable. Like you can try to control it, but it's near impossible if it's going side to side. And this AN94 has a bit of side-to-side recoil, so you do need to negate that a little bit. And this attachment here, the Commando foregrip, will help with that tremendously. And yeah, that is my AN94 best class setup. This is the best class setup for multiplayer, specifically for multiplayer. Okay, again, I would not recommend this for Warzone. You can try it in Warzone if you want, but in Warzone there's a little bit different things. Like you need maybe a monolithic, you know, you might need a longer range sight. You might also need a few more bullets in the magazine, which isn't that big of a problem in multiplayer. And as you can see, the AN94 reloads quite decently well. It's quite decently fast. Also going to speak about one of the things that is very specific to the AN94, very unique thing to this gun, which is the first two shots come out, I believe at like 1000 RPM or something like that, which is crazy fast. Okay, so if you're someone who's very good at hitting your shots, the first two shots specifically, it's fantastic. And also another thing to speak on, so this gun does still have a little bit of recoil to it, even with the Commando foregrip and the compensator helping to negate the folded stock. If you guys are taking on long distance gunfights, just tap fire this thing, okay? Because this thing has an automatic two burst, okay? No matter what you do, when you press the trigger and then let go of it instantly, like you just tap it, you're going to be firing off two. It's going to do the two burst for you. So you're going to be firing two bullets at 1000 RPM like nothing. So basically, it's got a built-in burst mode, okay? Do not change it from like to the single fire mode. Just when you see someone long distance and you feel like you're not going to be able to control the recoil, or it's quite far and you know you're not going to be able to full auto them, just burst this thing, because this thing is fantastic at doing that. You can burst this thing. You've got an 1000 RPM like fire rate. It's fantastic, so make sure you do that. You'll see in this gameplay that I think there's a few times where I did it, you'll notice like a delay in between my like shots, and that's because I'm bursting the gun, because I know that I'm not going to be able to control the recoil that well, or I want to make sure I hit more shots without missing as many shots very quickly, and the best way to do that is to burst the gun. So yeah, that's a very unique thing to this gun. Make sure you're hitting your first two shots, because those first two shots come out really quickly, and all you need to do then is, in say short to medium range, you need to hit like another bullet, maybe a headshot in there, who knows, but basically, as soon as you're hitting the first two shots, you're going to have a great time with this gun. It's a great gun if you know how to get your first two shots on target. So yeah, that is it. That is today's video. That is my AN94 best class setup. I think it's a great gun. I think it still needs a little bit of work to be there in the top meta. I still think the Grau and the M4 just about like outdoes it here and there. But the AN94 has this little niche with the 1000 RPM. So there are moments where you could definitely beat those guns. But you gotta have a good first two shots, okay? The moment you miss those two shots, your fire rate goes straight down to like 500 RPM, and that's like shooting an AK. And the AK is good, but at the end of the day, this doesn't have the damage of the AK. I think the AK has a little bit more damage than this gun. So yeah, that is it. That is the AN94. This is my best class setup for multiplayer. Definitely try this class setup. Definitely mess around with it if you guys are struggling for a setup for the AN94, or if you're just someone trying to level up the gun or get it gold. This is a great setup for the AN94. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Enjoy the rest of this 71 and 10 gameplay. Unfortunately, we don't pick up the win. I don't know what my team was doing, but somehow we lost so many flags and got absolutely destroyed on the flag count here. Don't know how that happened when I called in a gunship and that, but anyway, yeah. Enjoy the rest of this 71 and 10 gameplay with this AN94 setup. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe and notifications on, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
Alright, go.